Stellar Blade, which is set to release on the PlayStation 5 on April 26, 2024, is causing quite the internet uproar. It is hard to believe that an attractive girl in a video game can have this type of reaction. When Stellar Blade was first announced, what the developers were going for was obvious. The lead protagonist is an extremely attractive woman. The director does not hide away from this fact and is very open about the design choice. They stated that they intentionally provided the leading character with desirable features, as fans will spend most of the game looking at her. If this sounds like fan service to you, you would be correct. However, why it is a bad thing, I am yet to understand. I have already made my opinions about why I think fan service is fine clear in previous commentary. Thus, I will not be discussing them here again today. Instead, I want to talk about the reactions we have been seeing from certain people on the internet over an attractive girl in a video game. By this point, most people are probably used to some sort of reaction when it is revealed that there will be a pretty girl on screen. However, Stellar Blade is causing an entirely different type of reaction. By this point, most people are tired of this conversation. Thus, when some person starts yelling on Twitter, most simply ignore it. When those yelling the loudest started to realize that they were being ignored, things took a turn. All of a sudden it had nothing to do with the attractive girl, but rather the type of person you are if you liked it. Some people are now starting to point out that the leading character for Stellar Blade is underage. Thus, if you like the design, it must mean that you are into those types of stuff. In fact, one vocal voice on YouTube took things to another level. They roamed the streets of New York, asking random people if the design of the lead character looked underage. For their efforts, they were absolutely destroyed. In an attempt not to send my massive fan base of 10 people after them, I will not show the video here. In fact, I think there is a much larger conversation to be had than a YouTube activist having a mental breakdown over the sight of a pretty video game girl. All they do in the video is cherry-pick the most annoying people on the planet to agree with them. Instead, I think it is important to talk about why people go to these lengths to attack a game that engages in fan service. This, of course, is nothing new. It has been happening since the 1980s. Back then, it was about action movies. If you see violence in a movie, it will lead to violence in real life. Then, it shifted to video games such as GTA. Violence in GTA will lead to real-life violence. What is funny is the political shift. These arguments about violence in video games have mostly always been a conservative talking point. Liberals used to mock them for this take. However, now it feels like the conversation has shifted. The same people who used to laugh at others for suggesting that violence in GTA will lead to real-life violence are now the same people who say that a pretty girl in a skirt is going to lead to more sexism. When this shift happened is uncertain. However, there are always a few important things to note. This issue is fun to talk about because we get to see crazy people lose their minds. It is important to note that this conversation is only coming from a small number of people. Most do not care about fan service. In fact, most men and women engage in it. It is easy to get lost in the Twitter wars. There is one issue with this discourse, though. We are seeing more developers and companies starting to give in to these crazy demands. Thus, this issue is becoming very real as more developers start to censor their own games. There is one thing to note, though. When we see one developer give in to these demands, there is always another standing up and pushing back. The Stellar Blade team is strongly standing behind the design. And there is plenty to stand behind. Thus, I cannot wait for the release.